if you can, just post a message quickly in the chat, just letting us know, letting people know you're here, where you're from, what you're most excited about for today, and we'll get started. And so hello and welcome everyone. My name is Jeremy Babender. Thanks for joining us today for this session of STEM Community Lunchtime Conversations. Today, we are excited to talk about robotics and beyond, creating change in the world. Today's presenters are here with us today to share how they are using robotics and technology to inspire the next generation, save people's lives, and create lasting impacts. Our presenters for this session are Stephen Robertson at CubeRT, coach and founder of Spokes Robot from Launch Team Robotics, Dr. Vincent Pizziconi, associate professor from the School of Biological and Health Systems Engineering at Arizona State University, and Courtney Williams, co-founder and CEO at Imagine Solutions Technology. Thank you to our presenters for joining us today to speak with this group. The conversations were brought about in order to meet the needs of the community with these goals in mind. We thank you again for participating in this important discussion. So today, during the first part of the conversation, our presenters will share their experience in the area of how they are using technology and robotics to change the world. Once the presentations have concluded, we will take a few minutes to answer questions from the chat. We will post a feedback poll on the screen and have participants join moderated breakout rooms for small groups. Our assigned moderators will use a few guiding questions in a Google Sheet. As we get closer to that point, we'll share the link in the chat to allow you to add notes. When we return to the main room, we will ask for breakout room moderators to share their top ideas and thoughts with the whole group. So before we get started, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. First, throughout the presentations, please post all comments and questions in the chat box. We will monitor these to answer questions, address comments, and provide discussion opportunities. To start, please feel free again to post a hello to the chat to let everyone know who you are here and what you are most looking forward to getting out of today's discussion. Second, please remain muted during the conference call and unmute in breakout rooms. Third, please enable your video during the conference, especially during breakout rooms and discussions. If you run into bandwidth issues, please feel free to turn off the cameras. Fourth, the presentation, as usual, will be recorded and we will email the link with the follow-up information by next Tuesday. Finally, if you have not done so already, please select those three dots at the top right-hand corner of your name and rename yourself so that people can know what organization you're from. And I think it helps in terms of helping us network and talk in the breakout rooms and also chat in the conversations. So without no further ado, wanted Stephen to start us off. Again, Stephen Robertson at CubeRT, coach, founder, and Spokes Robot from Launch Team Robotics. And so thank you, Stephen, and take it away.
Thank you very much. So hello, everyone. I'm Stephen, and this is CubeRT, little play on words there. And we're from Launch Team 6352. We're a robotics team located here in the West Valley. And we're here to talk to you about how we build robots. Next slide, please. So to tell you a little bit about our program, we're part of the FIRST robotics competition. It's a yearly robotics competition for high school students in grades 9 through 12. There's thousands of teams that compete internationally every year, with every year there being a new challenge and theme. The competition plays on a 3 versus 3 style with 2 alliances, red and blue. And as you can see, the themes can really add a lot of flavor to the season. I joined personally in 2014, and Launch Team was started for the 2017 season. Next slide. So here we have some of our best performing robots. So for actually all of our competition robots, top left is our robot Goddard from 2017, named after Robert Goddard, inventor of modern rocketry. That year we ended up ranked 15th, a score of 7, 6-0, and we ended up quarterfinalist. Next year, Ralph, named after Ralph Baer, the inventor of the Magnavox Odyssey, we ended up ranked 7th, and we're a semifinalist. Top right is Hopper, our 2019 robot. That year we got the hardest we've ever gotten. Rank 3, a win-loss of 11 and 6. We were the semifinalist alliance captain for our team. And then finally, down in the bottom right, we have our new robot for the 2020 and 2021 season. That's KJ, named after Katherine Johnson, one of NASA's famous female computers. Unfortunately, with everything going on, as you can see, we never really got to compete with KJ. However, we did win an award that year. It was actually the most prestigious award in all of FIRST, the Chairman's Award for our region. So, as you can see, the most prestigious award has absolutely nothing to do with the robot's performance. So, next slide. We're here at Launch Team focused more on building not just robots, but the community as well. So next slide. FIRST is actually an acronym for the Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology. As some of you know, it has a progression of programs for grades K through 12. And a big part of the FIRST ideals and mission is that they promote it as a sport of the mind, featuring gracious professionalism and cooperation. That means teams can compete like crazy against each other, but still help each other and respect each other in the process. It's founded by Dean Kamen and Woody Flowers. Next slide, please. All this ties into Launch Team's mission. We're actually a nonprofit 501c3 here in the West Valley, and our mission is to inspire young people to get excited about STEM. As you can see, a lot of robotics is more than building a robot. Sure, there's the technical skills like programming and electrical and CAD, but there's also the soft skills like giving a presentation, talking to sponsors, and networking to build a business and company. Next slide. So a lot of what Launch Team is all about is trying to help spread the word about robotics and the opportunities it can give. We've done this in a few different ways. For example, starting teams at local area high school and middle schools. So we're located in Surprise. So for example, Paradise Honors High School and Middle School, we started an FRC and 2 FTC teams there. We also reached out to Sunrise Middle School and Saguaro Elementary. In addition, we also have a program where we can provide first LEGO League materials to schools absolutely free of cost. It includes an engineering notebook and all the materials they need in order to fulfill the whole season. So you can see there, we've done this with partners like New World Education and the schools in Notberg. Next slide. Beyond just building robots and building the community though, we really want to help improve the students and get them exposure to increase awareness of this kind of opportunity. This includes going to community events such as the SciTech Festival and local area events such as DBAC STEM Night, and by helping out in the community with things like Go Baby Go in the bottom left and preparing a PSA against texting and driving. Next slide. And then all of this has culminated this year with our remote outreach. This is stuff like the SciTech Remote Festival earlier last month in February, and the Awesome Awards, which are available now. Next slide. So over the past 5 years, we've had an impact of over 500 students and 80 plus teams that we've helped start and reach out to. Next slide. So really, Launch Team is all about building robots, our students, and the community that we're in. And then finally, last slide. Here's some information about how you can connect with us and get into contact with us. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much, Stephen. What I was really impressed when you first reached out to me was just how much effort and work you're doing. Learned that I think you're undergrad student or you just graduated, but it's just the amount of engagement that you're doing at somebody at your, with all these other commitments at your age is absolutely amazing in terms of the work that you've done in the community. And I think it's just important to recognize, like, I hope more undergrads are able to do that and really support work like this in the community. So thank you for being here and speaking about that. And again, like the amount of sessions that you helped with the festival too was really impressive. So thank you for making that happen. So
Thank
next
you.
wanted to cue Dr. Vincent Pizzicconi, the associate professor from the School of Biological and Health Systems Engineering at Arizona State University. So take it away, Vincent. You're muted. You have to unmute.
Sorry.
There you
Thank you for the invitation, and I'm looking forward to talking about bioengineering. And so I'm going to share the screen here real quickly, and hope everybody can see this. Everybody can see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Well, so my talk isn't totally focused on robotics per se, but there's lots of robotic, essentially feedback control systems in biological systems, including humans. And so I was going to do is give you a kind of a fast overview, a quick overview of how we're bioengineering. What is bioengineering? What does it deal with? And how we use STEM skills to improve the quality of life of people on Earth and as we enter into space. So I'm going to take you through a kind of a historical ride from the mid 20th century to the what's going on now in bioengineering. And hopefully we'll get you excited about some of the things going on as how we apply engineering skills, including robotics, for improving healthcare and for humans and other biological systems. And so simply put, bioengineering is a discipline in engineering that primarily deals with living systems. We tend to focus a lot on humans, but we also are now making devices for veterinary care and domestic pets. We're also looking at harnessing and exploiting the rules of biology at different levels and different kinds of biological systems. As how we practice it, we design and develop medical technologies, primarily to improve the quality of life for humans, but we now are using different kinds of approaches as we move forward from its early beginnings and as we've moved from more synthetic designs to actually the designs of biology. And so I'm going to start off with the early beginnings. Back in the mid 1950s, 1940s, the engineers from traditional disciplines like electrical engineering and chemical engineering, materials engineering, decided to see if they could apply engineering skills to develop technology that would help people. So this is the earliest artificial kidney that was developed. It's called the rotating artificial kidney. It's about the size of a refrigerator. This is one of the early pacemakers. And so that's where we started engineering body parts using synthetic materials, but heavy STEM skills and heavy engineering application through design and development methodology. And there were some early successes. These were the things that really fueled the fire of what engineers could do in improving the quality of life. So bioengineering uses the principles of engineering with focus on biological systems. To early days was to repair and replace tissues and organs. And these are just examples of a number of devices that people are now utilizing to improve their quality of life. And so as we go forward to the next level, next generation of different tissue and organ systems, we went from early systems like this is an artificial blood shunt, and this is the rotating drum. And then we miniaturized that to the second generation and third generation kidney as an example. And we also went from very primitive and artificial blood vessels to much more engineered vascular blood vessels that allowed the broad access to this technology. So as we move forward from the 40s and 50s to the 60s and 1970s, we're now be able to evolve from early evolution of spare body parts to bioengineering of organ parts and systems. And so this is a complete system for an artificial kidney that purifies blood. And now we moved from repair and replacing to restoring tissues and functions. And so we now have a host of medical devices that have been designed and developed routinely in this so-called medtech industry in the United States and internationally. And these devices now restore, to some degree, body function. And so as we look forward, there's still a huge need for particularly organ systems. There's not enough donors, and there's a lot of still rejection problems. And so now we're looking at how bioengineering is evolving with the enabling of emerging technologies So on the left, it shows you a time scale of how systems that are engineered by man are becoming smaller and smaller in length scale. And as we understand the laws of science at the lower scales, the nanoscale, and with the emerging knowledge of molecular and cell biology and bioengineering, there was a nanotechnology revolution that's been taking place for the last 20 years or so that brings biosystems and nanosystems and cognition systems and info systems. So a lot of robotics has these kinds of features. And now the field is taking advantage of things like robotics from the standpoint of either manufacturing systems at the nanoscale, or looking how biology uses its own inherent robotic systems to control very complex networks of systems. And so we have a number of emerging technologies, particularly in the area of tissue engineering and regenerative medicine, which I'm going to focus on, that's now moving towards precision regenerative medicine. And so as we go forward, there's an evolution of a revolution to a brave new world of bioengineers, I call it. And so we're going from devices that are becoming much more able to restore function, but now we're looking at devices that are really based on primarily how biology controls and provides improved function using totally biological approaches. So as everybody knows, 3D printing is a very hot technology. It's affecting many different aspects of society. And the area of 3D printing body parts, it's become now from a theoretical concept to a come to reality. And so this is an image of a 3D printer. In itself, it's a robotic system that's printing living organs. They're not quite here yet, but they're getting closer. And because when you print organs and you start off at the nanoscale with molecular components and cellular components, gravity gets in the way. So NASA is trying to figure out how to use robotics and zero gravity or microgravity conditions as one approach to develop these complex systems. So now bioengineering's evolving to the point of repairing, restoring, replacing, and now regenerating complex tissues and organs. And so this field is now called regenerative medicine, and it's been very, very compelling of the implications of what we can do by engineering tissues and organ systems using biological rules. And so this is just a quick example of what you can do. And so I'll try to explain this really quickly. This is just a material that has different stiffnesses, and that we can then grow cells on these materials. So this is the same material, but we increase the stiffness going from left to right. And we started off with stem cells. These are the upstream cells. They can differentiate into very specific downstream cells. And for the same material, but different stiffnesses, one can convert a stem cell to a neural cell, very soft, a muscle cell, intermediate stiffness, or a bone cell. Same material, just difference in stiffness. And that's some of the things that we're doing in our lab. And we're making, in addition to 3D spinning, we can spin fibers, almost like a cotton candy machine, to make these fibers that are very close in scale and in material properties. The mechanical properties, chemical properties, and other properties, physical and chemical properties that mimic what we call the extracellular matrix. That's the mortar of a brick and mortar system that cells build 3D tissues to this electro spinning system. And it's nothing more than a polymer solution that is accelerated with a voltage gradient to form these fibers. And so this is some of the fibers we're.
So Vince, I'm gonna have to ask, can you work to wrap it up?
Yeah, I'm just
super
about
interesting content too. So
Yep.
it's hard to.
Yeah.
Hard to
Okay,
say
and
anything.
so this is just a mimetic scaffold of a cell system. And so now the field is using robotics to control these biomanufacturing systems to print and electrospin substrates that can grow tissues and organs. And so we're going from way back from bioengineering spare parts to extreme precision of bioengineering your own body parts. So thank you, and sorry I took so much time.
It's like such actually the question I was gonna ask was about the future of where things are going, and you totally went into that. So it was pretty neat to hear that. But next one to Q Courtney Williams, the co-founder and CEO of Imagine Solutions Technology. So thank you, Courtney, for being here and providing yet another unique perspective around engineering robotics.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me, everybody. I am Courtney Williams, co-founder and CEO of Imagine Solutions Technology. So we just heard an amazing presentation about bioengineering, and here is a small subset or a potential use case of bioengineering as as an example here. So we'll go ahead and get started with the slides. Next slide. Here's why I do what I do. The US is the most dangerous and expensive place in the developed world to give birth. And next slide. And it's even worse for Black and Indigenous women who die at 2 to 3 times the rate of white women. Next slide. And oh, interesting formatting. The issue is that 50% of the, one of the issues that we see is that 50% of the world does not have access to ultrasound. When you don't have access to ultrasound equipment, this is the kind of tool that you'd use. It's a tool called a Pinard. It was invented in the 1800s, and it's a fetal scope to hear fetal heart rates, and it's still in use today. So next slide. Bear with the format here. I started my company because it really bothered me that these health disparities exist. I started to see health disparities actually in my own family, the ones that I just spoke about, and so I wanted to do something about it. So next slide. What we're working on is one of the things that we can see to affect these health disparities is access to diagnostic equipment. And as we all know, ultrasound is a life-saving diagnostic imaging tool. So this is a tool that can be used head to toe, but we at our company are really focused on using this for women's healthcare, for maternal health, because while this is one of the original use cases, this is one of the most underserved areas that exists. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the technology that we're developing and how it's being used in low resource settings to make an impact on patient care. Next slide. What we are working on is a new level of care for pregnant women through advanced patient and doctor software, plus the handheld ultrasound to improve outcomes. So providers with our technology can save time, they can see more patients more productively, and they can actually even bill insurance and generate revenue with this tool. But patients, it's super important for patients to be able to have access to this kind of imaging technology because it helps them to be able to advocate for themselves. They can understand their own biology better, and it's yet another layer of care so patients don't fall through the cracks. Next slide, please. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we're deploying handheld ultrasound and this advanced patient doctor software in low resource settings to help patients. So we got our first start by doing a pilot program with an organization called Saving Mothers in West Pokot, Kenya. This is a low resource setting where there are literally no access to ultrasound machines at all. So we're using our technology, which is a tablet, regular cell phone, a doctor's regular cell phone, plugging in an ultrasound probe that looks like this right into the phone or tablet and starting to do scans in places that don't have access to Wi-Fi. So we initially worked on a prenatal project in Kenya where women who hadn't had any prenatal appointments really at all, no technology at all to see their own biology and gauge the health of their pregnancies, were able to have a provider who is trained on ultrasound give a field ultrasound scan kind of in a really rural area, so they could understand whether their fetus was face up or face down, breech or not, check the fetal cardiac activity, as well as do amniotic fluid checks. And this impacted 60 patients over a period of about 3 weeks. Next slide. We took the learnings from that project in Kenya and worked with a team of U of A students to use this technology in rural Dominican Republic, where they do field clinics, and people from lots of different places in the surrounding regions of where these visiting medical students go are able to get medical assistance and medical help in a day's time frame. So people like this young mother came to get literally their things checked from head to toe with our ultrasound. And while ultrasound is typically, in our case, developed for women's health to look at like ovary, uterus, fetus. In this case, we were able to work with this group of medical students head to toe to get lots of things like thyroid, on the spot echoes for their cardiac checks, etc. Next slide. Then we worked with the Red Cross in Mexico to provide prenatal scans over a period of 3 months. And this program saved folks 5 hours of a drive and 500 pesos each time to be able to have access to this kind of technology right there in the Red Cross office. Next slide. And last but not least, in Haiti. Haiti is another place that we've started to work as well. And in Haiti, we are working with 2 different maternal health hospitals that serve patients from a wide, 200-mile plus radius, yet there is not a single ultrasound machine in the hospital. So they're using VistaScan, our technology, to be able to provide these prenatal scans. We just got feedback about 3 weeks ago that they're actually able to save a life of a woman with an advanced ectopic pregnancy just by being able to do a quick look with this kind of technology. So ultrasound is life-saving, and it provides both patients and doctors with a level of security to be able to understand conditions. Next slide. I'd love to talk to you more about this in the breakout rooms. And this is my company, Imagine Solutions Technology. Yet this is sort of the beyond of bioengineering and robotics. And this is the kind of application that the technology that was presented earlier can affect. It really, truly can save lives. Thanks so much for your attention.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I'm really grateful for just the 3 different angles of what we're talking about with robotics. And one thing is this idea of the students and progressing to research and then to really in the field. And so I wanted to ask each of our presenters kind of where do you see kind of each of the areas going 5-10 years from now, both from the student engagement with Stephen to Vincent with the field and research to Courtney with kind of deploying these technologies throughout the world. So I don't know if each of you are able to briefly respond to that. And then in the meantime, I'd also like to ask all of our attendees to just start posting questions that you have into the chat. Love that we have some CSOs here today too. So please also definitely voice your questions as well.
I feel like I could take a first swing at that question. A lot of what FIRST was originally founded on was seeing how students would look up to these athletes and celebrities and saying, oh, I want to do that when I get older. And really the question of how often can an individual go pro with that and really make it, compared to something like STEM and robotics where anyone can go pro. So really, I think seeing an expansion of robotics and STEM in education is going to be a huge step forward in preparing students not only for STEM careers, but also just anything where there's a lot more technical and procedural thinking, and that will really help to push forward progress. I also want to say a quick shout out to Miss Kaiser. I saw you in chat. Hello.
I want to say a quick shout out to Martha for saying that Vincent was her mentor. So how cool, it's coming full circle. The chat box is just going crazy, and I'm just elated that you're all here presenting.
He was also my high school computer science teacher.
Ah, that's super cool.
So Vincent, is there anything you would say in terms of like the future, like maybe 10 years, 20 years from now? And you're muted right now. You're still muted.
Yeah, okay.
There
Sorry,
you go.
I know it keeps going off. Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah, this is a really exciting time in bioengineering, and the fact that we can engineer tissues and organs specific for an individual person is absolutely remarkable. It's going to require a lot of multidisciplinary and what we call transdisciplinary teams of people with different specific skill sets to bring together the best of STEM education kinds of skills to develop the complex adaptive systems that humans are. And so a lot of it's robotic control and at different levels of scale. And so robotics is one major skill set that's going to be very important. But at the end of the day, it's going to improve human health beyond what we ever envisioned. And some of the questions being asked are things that we never even thought would be possible to ask. But how long can you keep the quality of life of people at a high quality for as long as we can? And in principle, there is no upper limit. And as we explore space, we are adaptive enough that we're going to have to come up with new rules of how a human is going to adapt to those kinds of extreme environments. So it's exciting.
Then Courtney, from your angle in terms of deploying these technologies to around the world, especially in third world countries that don't have the resources.
Yeah, I mean, I will piggyback on the idea of interdisciplinary teams to get technologies like mine out. We obviously we're a software company more than anything else, and so we require really heavy engineering, software engineering expertise, computer science, data and analytics, et cetera. Some of the AI aspects that we're developing out, but it also requires a team that understands bioengineering, because there's a lot of like hardware software talk. And I think as we're moving forward in bioengineering in general, there's going to be a lot more talk between hardware peripherals, what we call them, and software. And that's just going to continue to multiply. And I think that's the future of healthcare in the short term.
Perfect. And maybe you can continue with the next one, Courtney. I like Hope's question just in terms of passion, and kind of these trajectories are so different. And so how did you become passionate about what you do? How did you get into this work?
Yeah, I was actually working a corporate job. My background's in business, actually. Like I have an MBA from Thunderbird. Proud of the University of Arizona as well from undergrad, and Arizona public school system. I got into this field because my sister had a really difficult pregnancy, and it really bothered me watching what she went through, and that the level of care should have been better. And so I started to research this. I researched the problem more about ultrasound not having access, having worked in low resource settings myself, such as in Guatemala, Argentina, Ghana, and Africa. And I wanted to do something to impact that. So for me, it was personal experience. And, since I didn't have the expertise necessarily on the coding side, I've been surrounding myself with coding experts that have experience like with similar types of projects in order to be able to move the best in class solution forward.
And how about you, Vincent? How did you get into this field to begin with, and what keeps you?
I'm old enough that I was with the early pioneers of the field, the engineers and scientists that had a vision but never been done before. How do you apply engineering to complex systems that we barely understood in the day? And once it was one moment actually that I became aware of this field back in the early 60s, that I made almost a split decision that that's what I wanted to do. My background's chemical engineering, actually. There was no bioengineering in my day. And we developed these programs, and they're flourishing all over the world. And for those that would like to apply their STEM skills to human quality of life and the human condition, I think it's one of the most challenging and satisfying fields you can enter.
And how about you, Stephen? How did you kind of get on this trajectory of wanting to really engage local communities with STEM?
I've basically been in FIRST for more than half my life at this point. So I originally actually went to school over at Paradise Valley High School, even though I live over in the West Valley in Surprise. And I got a really great robotics experience with their team, 1165. So I saw from there that I had such a lot of opportunities open up for me because I was part of robotics. I wanted to make sure I could bring that back to people in my home community. So that's why I started Launch Team. Overall, I think that's also what's kind of pushed me to go for electrical engineering at ASU. I'm a senior now, and I'm going for a accelerated master's program as well.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, at this point, I wanted to turn it back over to Hope. for the next steps with the conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. And thank you to each of our presenters. This has been just so fabulous to hear the spectrum, right? So starting with outreach and that kind of elementary, middle school, high school, and then going into that research and theory and really kind of going into Courtney, like how do you then take that application and go out and use it? I love the entrepreneurial spirit in there too, Courtney, right? It's like there was a Dr. Ganesh who I used to work with at ASU always said, you know, what is the problem you want to solve, right? And then go out and solve it, right? And so how do you find the people around you to do that, right? You find a Dr. Pizziconi who's doing some cool research in his lab, or you find a Stephen who's like, I'll do whatever you want, man. I got this team of people that'll make it happen, or CSOs, right? So I love seeing that progression of each of you, and how Courtney, you were in business, right? And all of a sudden you were like, no, this is not okay, right? I don't want this to happen anymore. And you go out and how do you leverage technology to really make those changes in the world and improve people's lives, whether that's just personally as their own self or their health or their way of living. So I just loved each and every one of your presentations and the spectrum that it covered. So thank you each and every one of you for being here today. We really, really appreciate it. It was just awesome to hear it. So, and I've been to Dr. Pizziconi's lab a million times. So when ASU's Open Door, this is my plug, when ASU Open Door is back in person, you have to go check out his lab, one of my favorite places to visit.
Oh, wonderful.
It's so much fun. There's all sorts of things happening in there. So at this time, what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and break out into 3 breakout rooms. We have Michelle, who will be moderating a room. We have Fritz, who will be moderating a room, and we'll have Douglas, who will be moderating a room. We have some guiding questions, but also some space in there to just talk about other things that come up, you know, from those outside of the questions that I've put together. So thank you, Michelle. That was wonderful. Love that. And then Douglas, do you want to round us out?
Yep, there. Wow, thank you, Hope. As usual, SciTech Institute rocks it, and we had a tremendous breakout session. I had the pleasure of 2 commissioned officer majors, major league thought, and the chemistry was leveraging off of Dr. Vincent's wonderful presentation about the necessity and the driving need to bring all these disparate, different skills and technologies and toolkits of all kinds of professions. And the great challenge to me as an outsider looking in is how you're going to bring this together. And I was just making the point, wow, the services have always had this challenge of all these different kind of skills and trying to put it together to achieve a goal. And then we were off and running. And so I think Gerald brought up some aspects of that when we were starting this reconnect with the end of the breakout. So to put it in a nutshell, communication is key. Videography and short, compelling stories that ignites the imagination and gets the public awareness to rock it up and help fund and help the communities of professionals. We can all have a better life together. So it's an exciting world.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Douglas. I always appreciate you jumping in and being a moderator. I kind of feel like you're kind of part of the SciTech team. I mean, not even kind of, you are, you know, we spend a lot of time together. So thank you, Douglas, for that. I appreciate it. And so with that, as I mentioned before, we sending out this recording and anything that was captured in those breakout rooms, we'll make sure to send all those out. And one last thank you to our presenters. Absolutely amazing, wonderful. Thank you for taking time out of, I know, your very busy schedules to be with us today. We truly appreciate you, and so does our STEM ecosystem. And we hope that everybody can join us for our next STEM Community Lunchtime Conversation, which is Thursday, April 15th, same time, same place. And with Earth Day coming up, we're going to be doing our next one on sustainable Earth. So we'll have air, wind, or sorry, that's the same thing. Try again. Water, Hope, start with a W. Water, air, land, and outer space. So we'll be talking about those topics in our next STEM Community Lunchtime Conversation. So thank you all again for being here, and we absolutely appreciate you. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you,
Bye,
Hope.
y'all.
Thank you,
Thank
Kelly.
you.
Thank
you.
you, SciTech.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
presenters. You guys were so fabulous.